Every home is a work in progress. When you move into a new house, it takes time to make it your own. Sometimes it's as simple as unpacking your books, in my case, millions of CDs, putting up some photo frames or applying a new lick of paint. For the more ambitious, however, home improvement doesn't stop there. Renovation might be a journey of highs and lows, but it's also a journey of home. It's all about making your property dreams a reality. I'm Anita Rani, and I am a self-confessed property addict. And this is No Place Like Home, a podcast brought to you by Hamptons estate agents, home experts since 1869. Now, throughout the year, I'm going to be meeting a range of celebrated guests and experts to talk all things property. Whether you're a first-time buyer, renter, or seasoned homeowner, we'll answer your burning questions and confront the unique challenges facing our customers in 2023. At Hamptons, we know a house is much more than just four walls and a roof. It's where memories are made, laughter is shared, and comfort is found. From home cooking to outdoor living, redecorating to refurbishing, we'll be reflecting on all those little things that make a house a home. Renovation represents value added to your property and your lifestyle. I'm going to be chatting with a face you'll recognise from your TV screens, but he's more recently built a new career and cemented himself, no pun intended, as a DIY expert. Let's just say he's no longer in the bungalow. Later on, I'll also be joined with Hamptons property expert Vikki Broad, and she'll be talking about the best ways to invest in property renovation and how you can achieve affordable and sustainable results in 2023. But first, on to my guest. He launched his career as part of TV's cherished comedy double act, Dick and Dom. But today he's here to talk about something slightly different, from tearing up floorboards, replacing radiators, or upcycling wardrobes. Dom is a newfound expert in home improvement. Dom, welcome. And over 350,000 people are following you on this journey online. Whole new world for you.
And, like a lot of exciting things, it all happened with no plan and totally by accident.
So before we talk about it, because we are going to get into this whole new world, let's discuss where you are with life generally. You know, how is TV stuff? What have you got planned? What's coming up?
Well, it's great because aside from all this exciting new stuff that's happening, myself and Dick, Rich, I'll refer to him as Rich from now on because that's my best mate. We call each other Rich and Dom. So we are constantly working as we always have been. I think we celebrated 27 years working together this year. Yep, it's been a long and wonderful friendship and wonderful career.
He has to say that.
Yeah. Would he say the same? I think he would. And we are preparing to go hit the road at the moment to take Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, which is the show that put us on the map, really, on a 20-year anniversary theatre tour all over the UK. So we basically are doing a stage adaptation, nostalgic celebration of the show. So we've got the set, we've got a lot of the characters on the stage, and we're going all over the UK. And the audience, there'll be no kids in the audience, and I think it's going to be mainly 18 to 40-year-olds, I would have thought so.
Because all the kids that watched you on TV are grown-ups now.
They all grew up, yeah. So we kind of found this out because we had a stage show that we've been doing for years called Dick v Dom. It's like a game show on stage, and it was a family show. And we used to do it in festivals all over the country. We used to do it at the Butlins holiday camps. We used to do it at Edinburgh Festival. But whilst we were there, we decided, our promoter, Brett, said, why don't you try a late night version? For slightly drunk people at 11 o'clock at night in the Edinburgh Festival. We were like, oh no, it's going to be a nightmare. They'll all be heckling us and stuff like that. And we turned up and the place went absolutely berserk. They were like leading comedians in the audience as well. And we didn't do it any differently from the daytime show, but they went nuts. And it was Rich who suddenly went, well, why don't we do the Bungalow? Why don't we bring it back? And we've been DJs for years when we lived together. And now we are kind of going out to massive drum and bass clubs and DJing as drum and bass DJs.
We literally could have a parallel conversation about drum and bass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we could talk from early to late 90s because that is like my era. Yeah. I mean, is there a better era?
Well, we'll have to get you along to one of the gigs.
Oh, mate, I'll be right at the front. Should we talk about your life and how it changed during lockdown? So let's go back to the story of you buying a property in 2020. What happened?
Well, we had to buy a place fairly quickly. We were in rented because we'd sold our place about 10 months ago. We had to get out quick because they wanted to move in. So to get the sale, we knew we had to go into rented for a bit. We were like, fine, that's all right. So we did that. And then we were like, oh no, we need to get moved. Then we saw that suddenly, as we found a place that we liked, the pandemic was starting to hit and we had to exchange very quickly. And we did. But the house we bought was a humongous renovation project. It's the kind of, when you look at like Hamptons website, you look at all the properties they've got, and some of them have been sat there for a little while, longer than
Hamptons,
others.
They sell them very quickly.
But and some of them you see them, they've been sat there for a while.
Yeah.
Then you look through the photos and then you understand why. Because I'd say 90% of people won't want to tackle that side of a project. It was one of those.
Yeah.
And we went there and looked at it and went, oh my goodness. I mean, from the outset, when you looked at the front of it, you thought everything was overgrown. It had bamboo growing in front of the bay windows in the front up here. And bamboo, as you know, it's impossible to get rid of. And that was just the outside. And the inside, it was one of those places that if you've got a spare 200,000, you'd be like, wicked, let's go for it. We didn't. And also, because the pandemic hit, I lost all my work as well. So suddenly the money that we had from the sale of our house that we were going to be using to do it up, we were then living off that. So it was a very tricky situation to be in.
What did you see? Because I bought a house exactly like that. There's the house that needed, it was, as I used to say, it's the most butters house on the street, but it, not anymore. But so what is it? What did you see that no one else saw? So
what I could see was a house that had been massively loved and lived in before. And I know that there'd been a family that had lived there and been really happy for many, many years. So you knew that it was a decent plot in a decent area. That's what I knew. And I could see the potential. If you've got that vision of, instead of going, oh, look at that, it's not my taste. Oh, look at that, all that needs doing. Instead, if you can step back and go see what it could be, then that's all you need. And you've got to have guts as well. You've got to be patient. You've got to know you're going to be living in something that's not what you would be living in for a good 2 or 3 years.
Was the plan to always do it up yourself?
No, the plan wasn't to do it up ourselves at all. The plan was to get people to come in and do the main work that I don't know how to do. And then I'll do a bit of decorating and stuff on the side. Turned out I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands, because we didn't have any work. Because most of mine and Richard's work is working on live events. And suddenly they were all gone. So I had a lot of time and I had no budget. So there was only one thing for it. And I said to Sandy, right, here we go.
This is your wife?
Yep. I said, here we go. Should we do it? She went, okay. Now, her dad was one of my heroes. He was a builder and renovator.
What's his name?
Tommy.
Tommy.
So Tommy was my hero.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from him anyway. I used to follow him around all the properties he was renovating and I'd help with him. And we invested in a couple of places, which we sold now, but we invested in a couple of places up north and I helped him renovate them. So I used to watch and learn from him all the time. And I channeled my inner Tommy and so went, okay, let's do it. And I can remember so clearly, we had about 2 weeks where we were finishing off the tenancy that we were living in. So I can remember vividly picking up his old drill, screwdriver that he'd given me, and undoing the first brass screw from the front door. And I just went, here we go. And from that moment, I was committed and I couldn't stop.
I love that this is emotional already, that there is Tommy, Sandy's dad, who you were channeling. Also, she's his daughter, so she's up for a bit of work by the sounds of it. And the two of you. And you're right, I bought this drill from Argos, Dom. And my dad called it the embarrassment because it was this massive, it was a hammer drill because the walls were so thick.
Yeah, with a bit on the side.
And I put my own shelves up and they were wonky forever, but I still remember, I get emotional thinking about putting those shelves up because I did it.
You did it.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got to do. You've got to not worry. You've not got to, the expectations you've got to have when you do renovation work yourself is it's not going to be as good as trade. Trade are the most talented, incredible people out there. They really are. I'm always in awe of them. I like fangirl when trade ever come around to my house and I'm
when
watching.
They turn up.
And the level of their work is so incredible. And I just can't believe it. And your work as a DIY, you're never going to be at that standard. But if you can achieve something yourself, surely that's a great thing to do, isn't it? When you put that shelf up, you did it. Yeah.
Tears to my eyes. I mean, the books were always on a slant, but it doesn't matter. It added Character. So what was the first thing you did? Where did you tackle this house?
The living room was first, and I remember just ripping back the carpet that had been there for a very long time, and it was thick in dust and stuff. And masks on, goggles always, because there's a lot of hazards in those carpets. So we took it outside, and then there were some floorboards that were all right. So I couldn't hire anything around that time during the pandemic. So I couldn't hire any belt sanders, drum sanders, anything like that. So I literally had a little clip sander that plugged into the wall, and I was working through the night, detached house, and no one could hear, just sanding floorboards, just almost crying, picking out staples with my pliers. So I couldn't get any plasterers because you just couldn't get any trade in your house then. This was like intense lockdown period. So I was just having to get some easy fill, and just from B&Q was still open, and I was just trying to fill any bits that I possibly can, sanding it all down. It was hard work. I've got to be honest. Looking back, I've actually blocked a lot of it out. But now when you look back, it was insane. It was crazy.
I feel like this is going to be a bit of therapy for you.
Well, it kind of is. It's just really bizarre because I'm now able to do bits of DIY in my own time. But I was up against the clock. I had a family relying on me.
There might be people listening to this who would not even know what those tools are that you're talking about and quite fancy doing this.
Yeah.
And we know that Tommy was, you know, your inspiration. Like, how do you even know where to start? If someone is listening, it's like, how do you even know? Is it going on YouTube? Do you just Google? Like, what do you do to figure out where to begin if it is just you and nobody to help you?
Me and Sandy have always renovated properties. So we've always bought flipping, I think they call it. So you bought one, done it up, moved on, bought one, done it up, moved on. And just through that passage of time, and I mean, I'm 45 now, we started in our 20s. I've just learned as I've gone along from other builders, other trade, bit of YouTube, but also just common sense and just stopping and thinking, I wonder what I should do here. But generally asking people.
Yes, exactly. Because I started in a little 2-bedroom flat. And exactly that, you know, you buy the embarrassing drill, but you learn. Let's talk about some of the challenges, because you said I got that image of you working through the night, sanding, picking out the staples from the floor. I can feel the pain of that. As someone who has, you know, stayed up doing sanding out of a banister.
You've done it.
I've done it all. I mean, I've not done to the extent that you've done, but, you know, I've definitely done my own home improvements. And it is hard work to the point where it breaks you. So let's talk about the point where you hit rock bottom before we take you on the journey of going up.
No, absolutely. I think the job that sticks in my head the most was, again, early days, one of the first jobs that I did. Once I got it kind of vaguely livable, I knew I wanted to look aesthetically pleasing. And I've always lived in, like this house, I've always lived in old houses, Victorian houses. I grew up in like Georgian houses. I love it. And this is a 1930s house. So it's kind of slightly void of character, all the kind of character that I like. And the staircase, they had no banisters. They had the paneling that goes up. You know, the kind of very 1970s paneling that goes up. So you can't see through it. And I looked at it and went, and there was the newel post was just a piece of wood like that. Just very solid. There was no detail in it. And I went, right, I'm going to put in a banister set. And Sandy was like, you've never done this before, but you can do it. Go for it. And powered by my ADHD, which I do, I just went, right, here we go. Went off to B&Q, got all the stuff, looked at a couple of YouTube videos, but then, you know, measured things correctly. Best bit of advice for any DIYers, measure twice, cut once.
Oh, I like that.
Measure twice, cut once, because you'll only have one go at cutting it. If you get the wrong size, you're in a lot of trouble. So, and I managed to install in a couple of days a whole banister set on the landing, going round the stairs and down the stairs, a new newel post in the bottom. And I'd never done that before. And suddenly the house was starting to look like a home that I would want to live in.
Lovely.
So that was the biggest achievement in the early days.
But very difficult.
Yeah, really hard.
Yeah.
Really, really hard. And once you started, you can't stop. I think once you're committed, you know what you're going to have, a half-done banister set. You can't carry on.
But there comes that point and anyone listening to this who's done any big home improvement job with the amount of dust in your house where you haven't got a roof or a carpet or a kitchen or whatever, and it's another ping of the microwave for your dinner. And there comes a point where you just, because I remember sitting on my steps literally with my head in my hands going, what have we done? Yeah. What have we done? And it really tests your relationship as well, doesn't it?
Well, it's one of those funny things. We kind of definitely worked on it together as a team, me and Sandy. Like, she, being Tommy's daughter, she was no stranger to renovation and hard work and graft. And we just kind of we just went, this is what we've got to do. We looked at gratitude. So gratitude got us through it. So we were like, why are we grateful today? We're grateful because we're in an opportunity.
Yeah.
This house is a huge opportunity to turn it into something that we will feel is ours, and obviously to make money in the long run. But that wasn't our primary goal. The primary goal was to make it into a family home.
Yeah, and then the satisfaction of once it's all done.
Yeah. Do you know what the funny thing is? I'm thinking about another project that was really hard work during the pandemic as well. It was when it was I knew I had a spring coming up. I think it was spring of 2021 coming up, and we weren't allowed to go for walks in the park. Do you remember that? We couldn't go outside, none of that.
Did you have a garden?
Yeah, we got a lovely big garden, right? Lovely big garden, but I completely landscaped that. So there was like a wilderness in the back of it, which was just brambles. I hacked everything, root balled trees, and put them in different parts of the gardens.
Do you sleep?
No, I don't need much sleep, so it's fine. But this garden, I pushed most of it back, so I gained an extra third of the garden. Then I thought I need to give the kids something to do in the garden because we can't go out. So I dug a trampoline into the garden on my own. You meant to use a mini excavator and a skip and a team of about 3 people. I had a spade and a wheelbarrow, and that was it. So what I did is I dug out. It's all on my Instagram, and I think it's on TikTok. No, it's just on the Instagram.
You meant to have an excavator. I had a teaspoon. And that's it.
Yeah, I was saying that Shawshank Redemption. It's ridiculous. So I dug out a whole massive trench and got rid of all the soil and pushed it to the back of the garden. Then I got some sleepers and I put it in so it actually looked like a raised bed in the back. So I utilised that soil in the very back, which I still haven't planted anything in because it's like clay. But then dug in the kids an in-ground trampoline. It was insane, but you were fueled by adrenaline during this period, and you had to just do what you had to do.
And we had the luxury of time as well. There is that as well.
I had a lot of time on my hands, which you're right, was a massive bonus.
That is such a great story because it instantly puts you into very cool dad status. That is the story your kids will be telling their kids. Your granddad dug the trampoline in the garden. It's beautiful, Dom. It really is. But talking of the kids, yes, it was lockdown, and yes, you had time, but you had to homeschool as well as doing all of this. There's a lot of pressure. How old were the kids?
Well, they would have been, 10, 12, something like that. Well, one was started in secondary school as well.
So that's active. It
was hard. We found the whole home learning thing incredibly difficult whilst being in a project, living in. It was a very hard period, but a very kind of. I think we all got through it all right. We've all come out the other end of it all right, and the kids are very happy, and we've got a nice family home, luckily.
What about the most satisfying moments? What did you enjoy in particular? What was the best? I mean, the banister sounds lovely, but I think that was hard work. What was the pleasurable bits?
I put together these kind of DIY built-in wardrobes in my son's bedroom, so they look purpose-built, and it's great. So instead of getting someone to do it, if you can do it yourself, and it all arrives flat pack. Anyway, so I did that, and I used the mini roller. The sponge rollers, instead of the woolly ones, sponge ones give a finish like it's been spray coated. Beautiful. There's my top tip. But so most satisfying, I think.
Sponge roller.
It's beautiful.
Lovely.
But I think
yes, the most
satisfying one is one I did recently where I tiled my front porch. And kind of did this kind of mosaic-y border around the edges, and then did the diamond-shaped black and white tiles in there with the bull nose at the front, and that just looks when you're grouting. I think I still got grout in my fingernails, but when you're putting the grout in the tiles, and then you wipe it all off, and it all just looks finished. That is a really satisfying moment.
And also, there's just something about that being the entrance to your home. That is it. This is the first thing that people see when they come to your house. Will be that.
It's one of those funny things, and one thing I've learned is detail is actually everything. So even though people won't look at it or mention it or notice it even in the subconscious, it all goes in. So like I've got a door in the under the stairs. So I've got a toilet door there, which I made nice by putting loads of nice trim around it and mouldings. But then there was a door that was just a horrible piece of wood. And I took that out, used it as a template, and made it into a really nice, beautiful looking door. Now, no one's going to mention that's nice.
But it's there.
It's just if you've got loads of these little differences, like in this house here, it just makes a whole bigger picture beautiful.
Absolutely. The attention to detail is exactly right. You've talked about a few things that you needed to, cover your face when you were sanding the floor. So let's talk a bit about the health and safety aspect of all of this, because, if you're an amateur and you want to get ripping up floorboards, you need to, or hammering the walls, you need to be careful because, you know, anything could be behind that wall. As it turned out when my dad tried to do some home improvements back in Bradford, and he hammered a nail into the floor and hit a water pipe. Yeah. We had a fountain. I mean, me and my brother thought it was great because we had a fountain in the bathroom. Not so great for my dad's. So what tips would you give people about health and safety? What should they be thinking about?
You can't be overly cautious, basically. So many accidents happen on the building site, and more so for DIYers because the builders are trained to know what PPE that they should be using. DIYers probably don't think about it as much. Now, you probably have no idea how much you're inhaling when it comes to if you're cutting tiles, or if you're cutting bricks, or if you're sanding floorboards, or if you're sanding down walls before you paint them. These are all airborne particles going into your lungs. They go nowhere else but going into your lungs. So I'd say masks are very important. You only get one set of eyes. There's something called the safety squint that people laugh about. You go, that's all right, I'll just do the safety squint. There's less room to get to my eyes. Don't do that. Wear goggles at all time. And also, one that I've totally overlooked, which I'm starting to use more, is ear protection. So I'm using a tile cutter recently, and afterwards, my ears were ringing so badly. So you should always wear, you're like a sci-fi movie. I mean, you've got stuff everywhere, but you've got
all orifices protected.
Exactly, something like that.
And what about sustainability? Is that important to you? I mean, it's going to be important to quite a few people listening to this.
Yeah, sustainability. I think more and more companies are pushing sustainable products now within the building world. I know there's companies like Hippo who are specialise in like caulking and adhesives, stuff like that, and they've got these cool reusable guns, silicone guns. So basically, it's an outer casing, and you put like what looks like a sausage, like the pate sausage.
Yeah,
they've got the wire on either end, and that is full of your adhesive or silicone or caulk, and you put that in there. You go so instead of throwing away a whole big tube that goes in your skeleton gun, you just got a tiny bit of packaging. So there's loads of companies now that are being sustainable about their products.
So you can just find people that will be able to provide you with things that kind of fit your lifestyle. Also, silicone gun, another very satisfying tool. Lovely action. The silicone coming out. Yeah, putting it and then running your finger over it. Oh, delicious.
Isn't it great?
Isn't it lovely? Right. Most people know you from Dick and Dom. We know that you've had this really great TV career for years and years and years. And now you found a whole new audience doing DIY. So you've stepped into a new life. Does it feel like it's a whole new opportunity for you?
It's always going to be a side hustle for me. So it's going to be like something that I'm really enjoy doing. I've always enjoyed DIY. I've always been very passionate about it.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of getting to a point. I'm definitely not an expert, but I'm learning, and I never get bored of learning. Always learning off people.
Whereabouts are you in the process?
Upstairs has not been done. I've got 2 bathrooms that I need to do. They're still the same as when we moved in.
Dom, here's the thing though, we're not in the pandemic anymore. Yeah. You could just get someone in to do it.
Where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in that? Again, it's about learning, your thirst for learning. I wanted to do more. And look, I know that trade will do a better job than I could ever do. I've got a couple of guys who are wonderful, who will, if they're doing a job, they will let me do it with them. I'm probably the biggest pain in the arse.
I'm sure you are.
I mean, an absolute nightmare. In fact, a friend of mine said that I'm like the kid with the wooden spoon that says they baked a cake, but they just stirred it like that. So I'm a bit like that.
Yeah,
but,
so looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, what a nightmare. What a nightmare.
You sure you want to do it like that? And what's your relationship like with your followers? Do they kind of give you suggestions, and has it become quite collaborative? Because here's the interesting thing about social media. You can have that dialogue with people. It's not just you putting out content as you do on TV. Yeah. They tell you in real time what they think, and how's that? And have they given you ideas?
Do you know, it has become the most, honestly, the most wonderful community you could imagine. There's so many trade on there, male and female, which is a wonderful thing. By the way, females in the trade game is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, they are amazing, and they're coming through and battling through what they've got to bat through to get to where they want to get to. And it's really, and actually what's happening now is they are being encouraged and supported by the males within the industry now, which is a really good thing. And they are all giving me so much advice. I think at first I had a few people going, stick to your day job, stick to shouting bogeys and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, well, that's just totally the wrong message. You're meant to be saying, go for it, mate.
Yeah.
And by the way, whilst you're doing it, try doing it like that. And I've got a few different people who just constantly offer advice. So if I do, I'll film a story and go, anyone got any advice on whether I should be using a tile cutter or an angle grinder to do cuts on this? And the amount of replies.
Does that surprise me? I mean, you're talking to a lot of DIY experts out there. And there's one thing that we all know, if you do home improvements, there's nothing more that you like to do than give people advice.
Yeah.
If that's your thing.
Ooh,
are you sure you want to do it? Oh, it's going to cost you. Oh, what about this?
Yeah.
Has Rich been to see it?
Rich is around all the time. Do you know what? It's been wonderful because he comes over and sees it. But it's encouraged him to pick up the roller because he usually pays people to do the jobs and get it done properly, you know. But he's been getting out his roller and his paintbrush and he's been painting his house. He's about to start a kitchen extension soon.
Very good.
Yeah.
Is he going to do it himself? No.
I don't think so.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from this entire process? It doesn't just have to be about property. It can be something about yourself or...
You are only limited by your own ambition. So if you say, I can't, then you won't. If you say, I can, then the chances are you can. I never would have thought in a million years when I started, I'd be able to achieve what I've achieved. And it's made me realize that if you are focused and you believe you can, you really can. But with the support of wonderful people who are giving you advice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also make sure you have the right tools. It's been brilliant. I've loved it.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay there. Stay right there. Finally, the expert has arrived to save us from our conversation, Dom, as interesting as it was. We want to know the facts now. So joining us is Hamptons home expert, head of sales for Islington, Vikki Broad. Welcome. Dom and I are both the sorts of people who have walked into houses that needed a lot of work and said, we're going to do it. But most people don't. What advice would you give to people when they do see a house that is in disrepair? Should they go for it or not?
Absolutely. I think there's still definitely reason to go for a property that needs renovation. And I think you really have to think about whether you're doing it to sell in a couple of years or whether you're doing it for the long term, and think strategy. If it's something you're going to sell within a couple of years, then make sure you know your market, make sure you know who you're going to sell to and pitch it for them rather than for you. Often we see people fall into the pit hole of they're spending money for them and then they won't get that money back in the short term. But if you're doing it for you for 5 to 10 years, then absolutely throw the money at it, do it exactly to your taste, and you'll enjoy living there. And in the long term, you'll definitely make money from it.
Oh, that's so interesting. So if you're buying it for your home, then put all your personality and spend all the money. But if it's just an investment that you want to sell on, so what should you be thinking about then? What makes it sellable?
I think you touched on personality there. And for me, personality is everything. I think often people go in and whitewash or just put like greys on the wall. But actually, anything that we're selling at the moment that's getting multiple bids, going over asking price, it's got personality. So don't be afraid to be you, even if it's just for an investment. But just think about, I mean, in terms of kitchens, you can spend 5,000, you could spend 100,000. Think about who that demographic is and who you're aiming at and tailor it to them.
And your own budget.
And your budget.
I mean, imagine having £100,000 kitchen, Dom. Lovely.
So it's all about the panelling then. Get that panelling in place. That's all the detail, right?
So old buildings that are ripe for renovation, what about the red flags? What should we be looking out for when we go in?
Well, people love period properties because they've got so much charm. So I think they'll always be popular. But things do come up. I mean, I'd always say to people, get a really good surveyor to go around. Don't just rely on your mortgage survey. And the things that come up for us there are, I mean, damp comes up all of the time. Most properties have some form of damp in them. Electrics come up. Japanese knotweed's one that comes up more frequently than you'd think. And historically, I think the Victorians thought it was a beautiful plant and put it along railways, and now obviously causes us problems. But there's usually a solution. Even Japanese knotweed isn't a showstopper. People just panic when they see it. You just need a management plan in place. And I think that's the key point, really. There's usually a solution, but surveyors naturally go around and need to protect you and need to protect themselves. Just get another expert in who's more used to those things coming up. And
so a second opinion.
Second opinion.
Did you find anything in your property?
Like Japanese knotweed?
Yeah.
Well, we had things like asbestos
Yeah.
But I decided before we bought it to do an asbestos survey on the house to make sure that it was safe to live in, and also to get that removed before the family moved in. So we had asbestos. We had a problem with bamboo growing outside the front of the house, which is like Japanese knotweed.
Yeah.
Once it's in there, if there's a tiny bit of I think it's rhizome or something like that, part of the root in the soil, it will grow. It will just carry on growing. So I had to use this chemical to get rid of it. So there were had some damp as well, some damp.
But the point is that don't be put off completely because there are solutions.
It is the most depressing read ever when you get your survey report back. Don't be put off.
Okay, so what about terms of actually planning your renovation, getting in touch with the right people, getting permissions before you start?
Yeah. So I used to be a planning consultant, and I can tell you, you just don't know until you actually start looking into it. But you'll often see estate agents in the garden looking up and down. Is the precedent? And generally, if next door's done some work, if they've done the side and rear addition, then usually there's a good chance you'd be able to as well. I'd be cautious of any listed buildings, conservation area, then it can be a little bit trickier. And then in terms of your contractors as well, I'd ask estate agents, ask friends who've done work in the area, just for recommendations.
The three of us are sitting here as people who are not afraid of going in, and we've done our renovations, and you absolutely know you're the expert. Do you ever get clients that are put off, and do you try and help them see beyond what they can't see?
What we often get is clients who want a project, and then you show them a project, and they really don't want a project. They want to go in and paint and change the carpets. I bought a renovation and didn't want to. I wanted a turnkey home. So I think it's just speaking to people about, actually, you can put exactly your stamp on it. These turnkey properties are amazing, but often you'll still sit in there and think, I would have done something differently.
Yeah. So how was your renovation project? Just how bad was it?
It was pretty bad, but I found it super fun.
Did you do it yourself? Did you do lots of,
As much as I could. I bathroom tiles up, putting the patio down, any stripping of wallpaper. Yeah, I did as much as I could, budget-wise, really. I just wanted to save as much money. And then you've got to find people that you can trust to do the work.
Can I ask a question about Instagram, whether that's had an effect on people buying properties? Because to me, there's either one of two directions it's changed. One is people only wanting an Instagram-ready home.
Yep.
They see it on Instagram, they go, oh my goodness, look at these beautiful homes. I must have that straight away.
Yeah.
Or has watching people do renovations on Instagram made people think, oh, I'm going to do that?
I think a bit of both. I think Instagram can make it look really easy to do a renovation, and those accounts get massive followings. But there is definitely, particularly I'd say in Islington, where people are kind of cash rich, time poor, they don't have the time to do the renovation. So ideally, they'd pay extra just to get something that's ready to go.
So let's talk about quick fixes. What can people do in their homes that will add value, but also just make it a nicer experience to live in?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you sell a home, your home's the best it's ever been, and you've done it for somebody else rather than for yourself. But there's tons of things you can do. I think even painting, and again, back to that bit of personality, don't be afraid to do bold colours and not just doing the whitewash.
Is that right? Because I thought it's the whitewash that sells a property. I mean, I've got a house that is full of bold colours, and I just think no one else is going to want to live here. So bold colours is good.
I think within reason. If it's something that's going to divide opinion, then you might think about toning it down. But I've just sold a property where the living room's got black walls, and actually it gives a really nice feel to it. And I've just always thought like buy from like. So if you can come in and imagine yourself living there, that's when you get that emotion, and that's when people will pay to live there.
And what about quick fixes? What can people do in terms of making their house just more desirable to sell? Like carpet, no carpet? What should we be thinking about?
I think as long as no carpet is totally personal preference. So, I mean, changing the carpets, getting wood floors can make a huge difference. Painting the walls can make a huge difference. Even things like kitchens where you've got a really decent quality kitchen, it's just maybe a bit old-fashioned. You can think about changing the doors, painting the doors. Even changing tiles isn't a massive job, but it can give it a totally different feel.
I think we need to talk about renters as well. We can't leave the renters out of this because we have a generation that can only afford to rent, or just about afford to rent in London. And if they want to put a personal touch on their property, what can you get away with?
Totally dependent on your landlord. I think if we stick with what most people can get away with. I think you can look at adding rugs makes a huge difference. Totally frames a room and brings it to life.
Love a rug. Love a rug.
Love a good rug. Again, you can think about which kind of paintings you put up. You might not be able to put them on the walls, but you can still add colour. You can add cushions, lots of different things. And depends on your relationship with your landlord. So one of my tenants wanted to paint the walls. And that saves me a job and makes them feel like they're in their home. So we just agreed colours. They showed me pictures afterwards and happy days.
Yeah, surely that's the dream tenant. The ones that want to put up their own curtains, put blinds in, paint the walls, make it homely.
They want it to be their home, they'll invest in it.
Yeah, and they will stay there for a little while. Because Dom, you've flipped properties in the past.
Yeah.
But do you do them up for yourself to live in, or do you have one eye on selling? And in which case, where do you kind of restrain yourself? What do you do that is actually for resale rather than to make it home?
So whenever we buy a property, when we're doing it up, we absolutely always have in our mind the fact we'll have to sell it and to make it not a generic space, but a space that they know that they can see their furniture in. Do you know what I mean? So we won't customize it too much, but we do make it attractive and fun, but we don't fill it full of clutter. Yeah. So that when it comes to selling it, they can go, that would look good there, that would look good there, that would be good there.
So last bit of advice, Vikki, then for anybody listening who has never done any home renovation and who really wants that turnkey property, what would you say to them to tempt them into doing a bit of work themselves?
I think back to the point that you can get your dream home without somebody else's taste. And it's never as difficult as you think. You'll always have hurdles along the way. But actually, I found it really fun doing mine.
Yeah. And also the satisfaction once it's done.
Do you know, and that period of building, again, gratitude gets you through it. Aren't I lucky to be in the position to be having this done? Yeah. And the second thing is, that process of the build becomes a memory quicker than you can ever imagine.
So true.
Suddenly, within a few weeks, you're like, you can't even remember people being in the house. Yeah. At the time, it becomes quite stressful.
It feels like the longest time, but actually...
It certainly does.
Yeah, a bit.
Are we ready to play a game?
Absolutely.
Always.
Okay, so I have an iPad in front of me with a word or two words or a thing on it. And this is basically a heads up. You're going to describe it and I'm going to try and guess what the heck you're on about. Shall we do it?
All right.
All right, go for it. What's that word? What
goes around the bottom of a room above the floorboards.
Skirting board.
Correct.
Hey.
Very good. All right. I know about these. I put one in myself, made of marble.
Worktop. Kitchen.
No. Mine was made of marble, but you would put this on your wall and it looks like it has no support.
You drill it into the wall.
Drill it into the wall. Splashback.
No, you put...
Shelf.
It's a type of shelf. But it's not one that looks like it's got brackets underneath. So it looks like it's
floating shelf. Oh, a marble floating shelf. Check you out.
I don't know what this is, so you're going to have to take this one.
Oh, God. If you don't know what it is, I don't think I'm going to have a hope in hell.
You use it for chopping up bits of wood. You can choose different angles. You can choose different angles.
Angle grinder.
No, it's a type of saw.
You're halfway there.
But you use it to make cuts.
Circular saw. Or was it that saw that you mentioned earlier? What was it? It was
It's not a fighter saw, but it's a...
Lover saw.
Rhymes with fighter.
Oh, mitre saw.
Yeah,
lover, not a fighter, lover. Go on. What's that?
Oh, okay. So around the skirting board. That's right, yeah? Mm-hmm. It goes around the skirting board to connect it to the floor.
Oh, what's it called? Dowel?
Dowel is just round, so it's like a quarter of a piece of dowel.
So what's it called? It's called the... I can't remember what the word is. I should know this.
Okay.
You might have a bracelet made of these.
Diamonds? I can't remember. What is it?
Beading.
Oh, beading. Of course it is. Yeah. All right, here we go. Next one.
Oh.
Last one. You walk on them in the bathroom.
Tiles.
Which type of tiles?
Underfloor heated tiles.
Is that what you've got then? I think you're more generic. Just kind of...
bathroom tiles.
Yeah, well,
what are they? What is it?
Floor in there.
What is it? Floor tiles. Oh, well done. I think I did all right. But your descriptions were excellent. Vikki, Dom, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll be following your home improvements online. And Vikki, when I want to sell my house or buy one, I'll be coming to see you very soon. That's it, I'm afraid. All we've got time for. But remember, you can join the conversation online using our hashtag #NoPlaceLikeHamptons. We want to hear about your renovation stories in the comments, the highs, the lows, the DIY nightmares, and the ultimate payoffs. And lastly, I'd like to thank my guests. Dominic Wood and Vikki Broad. And most importantly, you, our listeners. Wherever you're listening, press that subscribe button to access the best home improvement expertise throughout the year. I'm Anita Rani, once again reminding you that there is no place like home.